Code 2, the warrior seeks to become invisible. The warrior does not need to be seen. They know they are most powerful when they are invisible. The warrior has the power of visibility because they do not need fame. While they pursue greatness, they understand there's a difference between greatness and fame. Fame is what you do for yourself, and greatness is what you do for others. There is this beautiful power that a warrior learns over time that he didn't usually understand in his youth. When we're young, we so need to be seen. In fact, we normally associate significance with visibility. If you're not seen, you must not be doing anything important. We live in a time and a space now where we confuse fame with greatness. We confuse visibility with significance. And so we try to have a presence, whether it's in social media or in some form of establishing our brand or identity. We try to become known before we're worth knowing. The warrior is not sucked into this false view of greatness. In fact, the warrior seeks to live his life with a very different rhythm. The warrior doesn't need to be seen. The warrior knows the longer they can be unseen, the longer they can have an impact on the world without themselves getting in their own way. I've known people in my life that no one will ever know their names. Their stories will not be told around the world. There will be no books written on them, films made on them. And yet they were some of the most significant people in my life. They were people who taught me what it means to be human. They taught me what it means to love. They taught me what it means to live a life of significance and meaning. This code goes against the weight of our culture and pushes us to choose a different way. Inside of us all, there's a longing to be significant. Inside of us all, there's a fear that we might live our lives without ever doing anything meaningful or significant. And I don't want to, for one moment, be dismissive of our need to try to leave some kind of fingerprint in human history. I just think that what we need to understand is that we actually lose our power when we're so affected by the perceptions and opinions of others. You cannot live your life trying to be what other people need you to be. And you do not want to live your life trying to appear to be what others want you to be. You have to choose to live your life in such a way that you know you're living out your truth, that you're living out your intention, that you're living out the life you were created to live. I love the dynamic that among the samurai, you were taught to not take the first swing, to not be the first one to attack, to wait for your enemy to make that first move. And I think so oftentimes what happens is that we become so desperate to make a difference even, that we end up frantically living our lives, trying to do something that matters, rather than finding a sense of inner confidence that says, I know that if I focus on the person I should become, that I will also accomplish what I'm supposed to do. It's been said many, many times, and it cannot be overstated, that when you focus your life on doing, you may lose your being. But if you focus your life on being, you will find your doing. So oftentimes we strive to do the thing we were created to do. But here's the beautiful thing. There's nothing you were created to do, nothing that God would ever call you to do, that will come out of anything except your essence. Your essence is the material of your significance. If you'll focus on your character, if you'll focus on your being, your doing will seem to come so naturally. It will come out of the outflow of your being. Have you ever seen someone that they just look like they're doing impossible things with so much ease? It's almost as if they don't even have to try and greatness just oozes out of them. And here we are so oftentimes striving to work so hard to be average, while other people seem to be easing into their greatness. When I was a sprinter, one of the hardest things in the world was to learn to not tense up so that I could try to run faster. I had to learn to actually loosen up, to step into this confidence that if I just allowed my body to move naturally and freely, I would move best and fastest. The person who tries to run faster rather than the person who relaxes and allows their speed to come, that's the person who's always wondering why they can't keep in step with the other person. Life is so much like that. I've lived this life now for 60 years, and one of the things I've learned is that you can accomplish so much more with so much less energy. When I was young, it seemed as if I tried with 100 times more energy to accomplish 1/10 of what I longed to accomplish. There's this beautiful relationship you can have with life, with the universe, with God, when you live in this space that sometimes is called a flow, when you found your zone, or you're in that space where life just seems to come so naturally. One of the beautiful things about the code of the warrior, that you're to live your life to be invisible, is that you're no longer pursuing the wrong things. I was moved years ago by this passage in the book of Ecclesiastes chapter 9 about this poor man who lived in a small town with only a few people in it, and how a great king came and built a huge siege work around it. And it says that man was poor, but he was wise. And through his wisdom, he set his city free. For over 20 years, I've been intrigued by this moment. I've actually spent endless hours writing out my own personal history of this man's life. I imagined in my mind that this man whom Solomon identified must have grown up with Solomon. I mean, after all, how would Solomon hear about this man's life? How could Solomon be astonished by this poor man's wisdom? I saw this scenario where King David was teaching his son Solomon from the earliest of age. And Solomon had this young aide. He was just the son of a peasant. He had no wealth, no power, no name, no lineage, but he was in the room of a king because he served Solomon. And they grew up together. And from the age of 6 to the age of 10 to the age of 14, here was this unknown boy learning the wisdom of Solomon from David, who was king. I know this because when I was a little boy, I wanted to learn how to tell time, but I was about 2 years younger, year and a half younger than my brother, who also wanted to learn how to tell time, but he wasn't really as interested in learning how to tell time as my mom was interested in teaching him how to tell time. And they thought I was too young to learn. And so while my mom was teaching him, I eavesdropped, and I learned how to tell time while my mom was teaching my brother how to tell time. You never know what someone learns when they're eavesdropping, when they're listening in. I imagine that this poor man who set his city free grew up in the proximity of David's wisdom. He learned the wisdom of Solomon. And Solomon knew the power of wisdom with wealth, with power, with fame, with position. Solomon knew the power of wisdom when you're the son of a king and when you become a king. I think why Solomon was so astonished by this man's wisdom is he finally was able to see wisdom unfiltered. The power of wisdom without wealth, the power of wisdom without fame, the power of wisdom without power, the power of wisdom without position. What would power look like? Not in the hands of the son of a king, but in the hands of the son of a peasant. What would wisdom look like in the hands of someone who is poor? And what Solomon discovered is the unlimited power of wisdom. No one remembered this poor man. His name was not written in the history books of any nation. Not even Solomon could find who he was or discover his identity. And yet somehow I sense that at the end of his life, he didn't feel as if his life was wasted or somehow his life was insignificant. I think this poor man whose name will never be known looked back on his life and realized his life was worth remembering. I want to live that kind of life. Not the life that is measured by my visibility, but my life that's measured by my invisibility. I know no matter what others may ever be aware of that I may do with my life, it pales in comparison to what I've done in my life that no one but God knows. No one perhaps but the closest people to me know. It's the same for you. Don't worry about what people see. Worry about what you know is within you. Because what comes out of your essence is the measure of who you are. God sees everything you do and everything you are. And those moments that are invisible to everyone else are celebrated in eternity and will be known till the end of time and beyond into eternity. I just had the privilege of finishing the audiobook for The Way of the Warrior. When I finished Code 2, The Warrior Seeks to Become Invisible, I felt like the ending needed a little more clarity, just something that would highlight one of the most significant points in the code, and I want to share it with you. Fame's great illusion is that you are known by the masses. Fame's great danger is to be known by no one. The warrior does not need a crowd. They need a tribe. Though the warrior seeks to be invisible, they know that in the eyes of those that matter, they are fully seen. The warrior knows that wisdom gives them the power of invisibility. May we all seek the wisdom that allows us to have our greatest power when we are invisible, and allow God to do the visible through our lives.